Take a slow, deep breath in. And let it out, just a little slower than it came in. Another slow breath, and let your shoulders drop with the exhale. Feel the way your body softens, as if gravity has found a gentler way to hold you tonight. You are safe here. You are warm here. Nothing is asked of you except to listen, and drift, and rest. Notice the quiet around you, the way the silence isn't empty, but filled with tiny, soft sounds. Perhaps the faint hum of the night air, or the almost imperceptible rhythm of your own breathing. Let your arms feel heavier. Your hands rest, unclenching without effort. Your eyelids become softer, as if a warm cloth has been laid over them. You might imagine you are lying near a hearth. The air has that cozy warmth that doesn't come from sunlight, but from firelight that has been burning for hours. It's the kind of warmth that soaks into you slowly, like honey drizzling into tea. And now, let us step quietly together, into another place, another time. Our story tonight begins before dawn. In a village where the streets are narrow and made of cobblestone. Where the air holds the faintest sweetness of wood smoke. And where one shop, just one, already glows with an amber light. It is the bakery. And inside, the baker is awake before any bird dares to sing. The fire in his oven has been tended since the middle of the night. Fed with bundles of hazelwood, their fragrance sweet and almost nut-like when they burn. He knows exactly how many bundles will bring the oven to the right heat, no more, no less. It's a knowledge passed down through his family. A rhythm as old as the village itself. The embers glow like little suns beneath the oven's belly. They crackle softly, the sound more of a gentle sigh than a spark. The baker kneads dough on a heavy wooden table. The table is dusted with flour, soft white clouds that rise whenever his hands fold and press. Fold, and press, fold, and press. The rhythm is slow, steady, certain. Outside, the streets are still. Frost clings to the corners of windows. The moon, pale and quiet, begins its slow farewell. Inside, time feels different. The baker's world is only the dough beneath his hands. The fire at his back. And the comforting weight of tradition that says, this is how bread is made, and has always been made. You can almost smell it, that faint sweetness from the hazelwood. The yeasty warmth of dough rising. The soft leather scent of the baker's apron. And here, in this moment, the only thing that exists is the folding of the dough. And the steady, sleepy breath of the oven. The baker hums, though so softly it is almost more of a breath than a song. It is an old tune, one his grandmother sang when the nights felt longest and the winters were slow to loosen their grip. It's not a song meant for anyone else to hear, just the walls, the fire, and the dough. The dough is alive in its own way. It pushes back ever so slightly under his palms, breathing with tiny bubbles of air that form deep within it. Fold, and press. The wood of the table creaks with each gentle movement. A sound that belongs entirely to mornings like this. Every so often, he sprinkles a little more flour onto the dough. And the air seems to brighten with the way it drifts down. Little snowflakes caught in the amber glow of the oven fire. The windows of the bakery are still dark. But if you were outside, you might see a faint shimmer there. A light that hints at warmth within. Sometimes a villager walking home late from the tavern pauses, feeling a kind of peace they can't quite explain. As if the world is quieter near the bakery door. The baker knows the oven's moods. He can tell if it needs more hazelwood just by the way the flames curl. Or if the air inside is too hot by the pitch of the crackle. This is no ordinary oven. It is a brick oven built by his great-grandfather. Its stones fitted by hand, each one shaped and placed so carefully that they have lasted for decades. He bends, slides a thick log of hazelwood into the glowing mouth. And the scent deepens. Sweet, woody, with the faintest hint of roasted nuts. The air near the oven is warmer now. And that warmth flows out into the room like a sigh. The baker pauses for a moment, leaning back against the table. Hands dusted white. Eyes half closed. It's still hours before the sun will rise. Still hours before the streets will wake. He imagines the day ahead. Children running to fetch bread for their families. Old friends lingering at the counter for a chat. The happy chaos of the market. But now there is only this quiet hour. The one he loves best. Somewhere outside, a faint breeze stirs. It rattles the wooden sign that hangs above the bakery door. The soft tapping almost like a heartbeat in the night. The baker turns back to his dough, rolling it into smooth, round loaves. Each one feels slightly warm from the life growing inside it. He places them gently into baskets lined with linen cloth, tucking them in as though they were sleeping children. And for a moment, he lets the oven breathe for them all. The village outside lies in a stillness so complete, it feels almost like the world is holding its breath. But inside the bakery, there is motion, warmth, and a slow rhythm that belongs to another kind of time. The baker moves without hurry. Every gesture, the lift of a loaf, the gentle dusting of flour, the way he checks the oven's breath, feels as though it has been done 1,000 times before. There is a peace in repetition. A comfort in knowing that these same motions were performed yesterday, and the day before, and will be again tomorrow. He checks the loaves resting in their baskets. The linen folds around them like small clouds. They are rising steadily now, the dough's surface soft and slightly dimpled. It's almost as if they are dreaming. From the narrow window above the workbench, a pale hint of light touches the frost on the glass. It is not yet sunrise, more the memory of light than the thing itself. But even this faint suggestion makes the room feel different. Like the promise of something arriving soon. The baker reaches for a clay jar of salt, the kind his father used before him. The salt comes from a port far away, carried by traders across seas, packed into barrels, and brought inland by cart. It is coarser than the common kind, with tiny flecks of gray from the rock it was mined from. He likes to think that in every loaf, there is a little story of travel. Of the hands that dug the salt, the ship that carried it, the horses that pulled it through muddy roads. He sprinkles a pinch between his fingers. And the crystals catch the faintest gleam from the oven's light before vanishing into the dough. The air has changed. Somewhere in the village, a rooster calls once, then again. It's a sound the baker has always loved. It doesn't mean the day has begun, not yet. It simply marks the soft turning of night into something else. He slides the first tray of loaves into the oven, using a long wooden peel polished by decades of use. The oven swallows them in a hush of heat. The fire curling around them like an embrace. A low crackle answers him. And the scent in the room deepens. Warm, bready, rich with the sweetness of hazelwood smoke. It's the scent that will wander out into the streets soon, finding its way beneath shutters and under doors. Gently telling the village, morning is coming. For now, though, it is still just the baker, the oven, and the quiet dance of firelight on stone walls. The faint silver light outside the window grows warmer, shifting slowly toward gold. The stars have begun to fade, one by one, as though retreating to make room for the sun. Somewhere, a single bird gives a short, uncertain chirp. A question to the morning that has not yet fully answered. Inside the bakery, the heat from the oven has made the air thick and gentle. Like a soft blanket wrapped around every corner. The baker wipes his hands on his apron. Then leans on the edge of the table for a moment, listening to the quiet tick of the cooling embers in the small hearth beside the main oven. The loaves inside are beginning to change. Their pale, resting shapes are swelling. The crust's just starting to take on a hint of color. It is slow magic. one that the baker never tires of watching. The transformation happens in silence. But the scent carries the news before the eyes can see it. Outside, the cobblestones hold the cold of the night. The frost still clings to their edges. Though here and there, tiny drops begin to form where the faintest warmth of day has brushed them. The village's narrow street lies empty. Except for a stray cat slipping between shadows. Its paws making no sound at all. The baker, soon to be filled with bread that will steam in the chill air each time the door opens. He unbolts the front door. Just enough to let a small breath of dawn in. The air is cool, almost sharp. Carrying with it the distant scent of damp earth and chimney smoke. It flows into the bakery. Mingling with the warm, hazelwood-scented air inside. A meeting of two worlds. Night and morning. Cold and warmth. For a long moment. He simply stands there. Watching the way the light slowly touches the rooftops. Turning slate into silver. Thatched straw into soft gold. Behind him, the oven murmurs its low, steady breath. Holding the heart of the bakery in its glow. The first batch of loaves is almost ready now. Their crusts gently cracking as they rise. Like tiny sighs of contentment. The baker knows that soon the first customer will arrive. Perhaps the old shepherd who always comes before the others. Or the miller's boy with his red scarf and sleepy eyes. But for these last few minutes, it is still only him. The bread. And the morning that is just now waking. A soft sound breaks the quiet. The faint crunch of boots on frost-hardened cobblestones. It is a slow, deliberate rhythm. Not hurried, but steady. Like someone who knows the way well and walks without doubt. The baker smiles to himself. He doesn't need to look to know who it is. It will be the shepherd, as it almost always is. Coming down from the edge of the village with the same patient pace he uses to guide his flock. The footsteps pause just outside the door. A moment later, the bell above the frame gives a single, gentle chime as the door opens. A curl of warm, bread-scented air escapes into the street. And in its place, the cool morning slips inside. The shepherd steps in, shoulders wrapped in a heavy wool cloak. His beard carries a touch of frost. And his eyes, pale and kind, glance toward the oven immediately. As though greeting an old friend. "Morning," the baker says softly. His voice still tuned to the quiet of the early hour. The shepherd nods in reply. Unclasping his gloves and rubbing his hands together. Not to warm them. But because the smell of fresh bread always makes him feel somehow lighter. As though the weight of the cold has already begun to leave. From the oven, the baker lifts the first loaf. Golden brown, its crust crisp but not hard. Steam curling from a single, delicate crack along the top. The scent blooms in the air. Hazelwood and yeast weaving together into something that feels like home. The baker wraps it in linen. The same way his father used to. And places it in the shepherd's hands. For a moment, neither man speaks. They don't need to. The warmth of the loaf says everything. Outside, the light has strengthened. The rooftops now shine fully with gold. And thin threads of smoke rise from chimneys all across the village. Somewhere, a cart's wheels groan into motion. And the faint bleating of sheep drifts in from the far field. The shepherd gives a slow nod of thanks. Cradling the bread as though it were something fragile. And steps back into the morning. The bell above the door chimes again. Two soft notes that linger in the air like the last moments of a dream. The baker turns back toward the oven. The second batch of loaves is ready to go in. And his hands are already moving. Steady, practiced. Part of the rhythm that will carry him through the rest of the day. Not long after the shepherd's departure. Another sound touches the quiet. Lighter steps this time, quick and a little uneven. The kind of steps taken by someone eager to get inside from the cold. It is the miller's boy. His scarf, bright red against the pale dawn, wraps twice around his neck. And a few strands of straw still cling to his hair. His cheeks are flushed from the run down the hill. And his breath curls like pale ribbons into the air as he pushes open the door. The bell above sings a gentle welcome. And the wave of warm, sweet-scented air makes the boy close his eyes for just a moment. As though stepping from one world into another. "Morning," the baker says, sliding another row of loaves into the oven with his long-handled peel. The boy grins and steps closer to the counter, already fishing a small cloth bag of coins from his pocket. "You'll want it still warm, then," the baker murmurs, lifting a loaf from the cooling rack. Its crust just firm enough to crack softly under his hand. He wraps it in linen and slides it across the counter. The boy takes it with both hands, holding it close to his chest, letting the heat seep through the fabric into his fingers. He smiles again. That simple kind of smile that belongs to cold mornings and warm bread. And turns to leave. As the door closes behind him, the sound of distant voices begins to drift in from the street. The first calls of market vendors setting up their stalls. The clink of wooden crates being stacked. The creak of a wagon wheel. The bakery, once a place of silence, is now part of a slow, widening ripple of life. The air hums softly with each opening of the door. Each gentle chime of the bell. Each brief moment when the cold and warmth meet in the doorway. One by one, familiar faces appear. A seamstress with her hair still tucked under a wool cap. A pair of brothers who carry baskets for their mother. An old woman who comes not for bread, but for the company of a warm chair and a kindly word. The shelves begin to fill. Each loaf lying neatly beside the next. The steam rising from them in faint, ghostly tendrils. The scent of hazelwood still lingers, mingling now with the sharper cold that slips in from outside. And all the while, the baker moves in the same steady rhythm. Fold, press, turn. Slide, lift, place. A quiet dance he has known for years. By now, the sun has risen high enough to spill through the bakery's front windows, pooling in golden shapes across the worn wooden floorboards. The light catches in the flour dust that lingers in the air, making each tiny particle glow for just a heartbeat before it drifts away. The bell above the door rings often now, each chime blending softly into the last, like the notes of a wind chime in a steady breeze. The room holds the gentle murmur of voices, the sound of coins sliding across the counter. And, beneath it all, the faint and constant crackle from the oven's hazelwood fire. Near the back wall, the seamstress and the old woman sit at a small table, sharing a pot of tea. The seamstress stitches quietly, her needle flashing in the sunlight, while the old woman speaks in a slow, lilting tone, her stories drifting just above the hum of the room. At the counter, two young brothers laugh as they try to carry a loaf each, their arms barely wide enough to hold them. The baker watches with a faint smile, sliding a smaller roll across the counter, and pretending not to notice when one of them hides it in his pocket. Through it all, the oven remains the true heart of the space. Every few minutes, the baker leans close to check the heat. The embers glowing softly like a bed of tiny suns. The scent they give, faintly sweet from the hazelwood, blends so seamlessly with the bread that it is impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. There is no rush here, even in the busiest hour. Each person lingers just long enough to feel the warmth, to let the scent follow them out into the cold, and to carry a little of the bakery's quiet with them into the rest of the day. And when the door closes behind the last of the morning crowd, the baker stands in the hush that follows, hands resting on the counter, listening to the soft ticking of the cooling loaves. When the last set of footsteps fades down the cobblestone street, a gentle stillness settles over the bakery. It is the kind of quiet that is not empty, but full. Full of the lingering warmth of voices, the echo of laughter, and the scent of bread that hangs like a gentle curtain in the air. The sunlight has shifted, now falling in longer, softer beams that stretch across the counter and spill lazily onto the stone hearth. The baker moves slower now, no longer in the steady rhythm of kneading and shaping, but in a slower dance of tidying and tending. He brushes flour from the counter with a wooden paddle. The soft hiss of bristles against wood almost hypnotic. The broom sweeps across the floor in slow, even strokes, the sound joining the quiet crackle of the embers. From outside, the village hum is gentle. A far-off cart wheel creaking. The muffled voices of market traders calling their wares. The occasional bray of a donkey. The baker sets the last clean bowl on its shelf and turns toward the oven, pulling up a simple wooden chair. He sits. A rare moment to simply feel the heat against his palms. To let the faint scent of hazelwood drift through his thoughts. On the small table beside him, a mug of warm cider waits. Steam curls upward. And for a moment, he closes his eyes and simply breathes. Each exhale feels slower, deeper. As if the warmth itself is telling his body to rest. Somewhere, a bird calls from the roof beam above the door. The sound is soft, almost blending into the faint whisper of the wind slipping through the shutters. Here, in this midday hush, the bakery feels not just like a place of work, but like the warm, quiet center of the world. A place where time folds gently in on itself. And nothing beyond this room matters. The hours drift by, and the golden light of morning deepens into the softer amber of afternoon. Shadows lengthen across the flour-dusted floorboards, stretching toward the far wall like slow-moving rivers. The baker is half-dozing in his chair, his head resting lightly against the backrest. When the door opens without the sound of hurried feet or a bright voice, just a slow, careful push, and the soft ring of the bell. In steps a traveler. His cloak is worn from many miles, the deep brown fabric brushed with dust from the road. He carries no large pack, only a small satchel and a lute slung over one shoulder. The baker straightens and offers a nod, and the traveler returns it with the faintest smile, the kind that says, "I've been on the road too long." He orders nothing at first, only stands near the hearth, letting his hands hover above the warm air rising from the oven's open mouth. The firelight flickers across his face, etching gentle lines into the calm expression. Finally, the baker sets a small plate on the counter. A crusty loaf split open and spread with honey, steam still drifting from its heart. The traveler thanks him in a low, smooth voice, one that hints at songs sung to small fires and moonlit streams. They speak little, only a few words here and there, and the rest of the time is filled with the quiet crackle of hazelwood, the muted rustle of the traveler turning the bread in his hands, and the faint hum of a tune under his breath. When he finishes, he takes the lute from his shoulder and plucks a few notes. Soft, unhurried, the sound filling the space like sunlight settling in a corner. It is not a song for performance, but a melody for resting, for breathing, for letting the road fade from your mind. The baker listens in silence, eyes half closed. And for a while, the whole world seems to move at the pace of those quiet notes. Outside, the sky deepens into a shade between blue and gold, the kind of light that makes every stone in the village seem older, softer, as if wrapped in a thin veil of memory. The baker rises from his chair and moves to the counter. placing a few more loaves on the shelf for those who may wander in before nightfall. The traveler still sits near the hearth, gently strumming his lute in the pauses between sips of warm cider. The air outside carries a new coolness, slipping under the door and mingling with the oven's heat. The scent of hazelwood is deeper now, the embers glowing with a steady, orange light. A light that flickers against the walls and makes the small windows gleam like polished amber from the street. A young couple enters quietly, their hands linked, their voices low. They choose a loaf, the baker wrapping it in linen while the traveler plays something slow and sweet. The tune seems to follow them out the door, lingering in the air even after the bell stops ringing. As the shadows grow longer, the baker lights a single candle on the counter, its small flame swaying in the faint breath of the room. The glow joins the oven's firelight, creating pockets of gold and shadow that shift like gentle tides. No one is in a hurry now. Each movement, the baker setting the loaf on the table, the traveler resting his fingers on the strings, the crackle of wood settling deeper into ember, feels unhurried, as though time has agreed to move at the pace of the fire. Outside, the first evening star appears. The baker notices it through the window, and wonders how many times he's seen it rise. Always from the same place, always marking the slow slide into night. Inside, the oven hums with quiet heat. The candle dances, and the bakery, for this moment, feels like the warm heart of a sleeping world. The last traces of daylight fade from the high windows, leaving only the deep, velvety blue of night beyond. The village outside grows hushed, its cobblestone paths empty except for the occasional echo of footsteps, softened by distance and the cool air. Inside, the fire burns low but steady, its glow pulsing gently like the heart of the room. The baker rises and tends to it, shifting a few hazel branches so that the embers sigh and settle deeper. The traveler sets his lute aside, the final note hanging in the air for just a moment longer, before melting into the sound of the crackling wood. He leans back in his chair, hands wrapped loosely around a half-empty mug. The baker slices the last loaf of the day, its crust crisp, its center still warm, and places the pieces on a wooden board between them. They eat in comfortable silence, each bite slow, each breath deep. The scent of the bread mingles with the faint sweetness of the hazel smoke, creating a warmth that settles in the chest, and drifts upward like a quiet sigh. The candle on the counter burns lower, its pool of melted wax glistening. Its flame sways gently, as though it, too, is beginning to grow sleepy. Beyond the walls, an owl calls once, its voice low and hollow, carrying across the dark fields. The baker closes his eyes for a moment, listening to the distant sound, feeling the weight of the day slide gently from his shoulders. The traveler hums a final, wordless tune, a melody without end, without hurry, one that could drift on until morning if left to its own rhythm. The bakery feels smaller now, but in a way that is safe, like a blanket wrapped around both man and guest, holding the night at bay. Here, in the glow of the embers and the soft hum of music, the world is only warmth. And the thought of sleep comes not as a command, but as a gentle hand, guiding the eyes closed. The embers have softened to a deep, dusky red, each one glowing faintly like a distant lantern in the fog. They no longer crackle. They breathe, exhaling warmth in slow, steady waves. The baker leans forward in his chair, his hands resting loosely on his knees, his eyelids heavy, the kind of heaviness that feels like being wrapped in wool. The traveler says nothing now, Only watches the fire as if listening to a story it tells without words. His breathing is slow and even, matching the rhythm of the glowing hearth. Outside, the wind moves gently through the narrow village streets, ruffling the thatch roofs, carrying the scent of cooling bread through the lanes, and past sleeping windows. Somewhere far off, a church bell marks the hour. One slow toll, then another, the sound rolling over the rooftops like the tide. Inside, the candle is a small, steady flame, its light softening with every flicker, until it feels less like illumination, and more like a quiet pulse in the room. The baker closes his eyes, letting the faint scent of hazelwood fill his mind. Sweet, woody, like the memory of autumn. It carries him somewhere far away and yet completely here. In this moment, where nothing is urgent, and everything is already done. The traveler shifts in his chair, his cloak falling more loosely about him, and hums a final note, barely above a whisper. It is not a song. It is the exhale of the day. The fire dims again, its glow sinking deeper into the logs, until they are just shadows edged in faint red light. The warmth lingers, wrapping the room, wrapping the men, wrapping the story itself, until all is still. And in that stillness, sleep comes easily, not with a sudden drop, but like a boat slipping into the softest current, carried away into the night.